Paths to the Present has been presenting links to the past since the year 2000. Over the years, we've worked hard to present stories about Montgomery County's rich history. And you know, some of those are worth seeing again. We've combed our archives for segments to repackage for you today. So sit back and relax while we rewind. Hi, I'm Gail Street. In the summer of 2003, Glen Echo Park celebrated a renaissance. That was when the beloved Spanish ballroom was officially reopened.
1, 2, 3.
Citizens and dignitaries have gathered to celebrate the grand reopening of this glorious Spanish colonial revival-style building. Its Art Deco interior now sparkles anew, breathing fresh life into this place that means so much to so many. This rewind dates to 2003 when Glen Echo celebrated the reopening of their ballroom. 1 year prior, the Glen Echo Park Partnership for Arts and Culture was established, the nonprofit charged with managing the park's programs and facilities. Now poised to celebrate their 10th year anniversary, Glen Echo Park is thriving. With 450,000 attendees and growing, Glen Echo Park presents something for everyone. People come from all over to dance, see a play, take a class, visit a gallery, or just take in the historic buildings and ride the carousel. From weekend festivals to week-long summer camps, the Glen Echo Partnership makes it possible for visual and performing artists to create, share, and teach their craft. The National Park Service continues to offer interpretive tours from their new visitor center in the Candy Corner, all in an effort to keep this park's heritage alive. Glen Echo Amusement Park was the destination for millions from when it first opened in 1898 until it closed in 1968. But the reason there was a park there at all is thanks to the network of electric streetcars that radiated from the District of Columbia into Montgomery County. One of the reasons Glen Echo developed at all was the electric streetcar lines that were being extended into Montgomery County from Washington, D.C. We visited the National Capital Trolley Museum to find out what the ride out to Glen Echo might have been like. Volunteer G. Wells Drumright explains.
Most of the cars were small four-wheel cars, a rigid frame, not particularly quiet, not particularly soft ride, but they got there. They didn't have to compete with automobiles or trucks or buses. They had their own right-of-way, and so they would travel along about 10 or 15 miles an hour, and eventually you got where you were going. So they were cars that could be reversed. They were double end so that the car motorman or perhaps the car conductor, because most of them would carry two men, they would reverse the car simply by carrying the handles, the control handles, from one end to the other, reversing the trolley pole, and flipping the seats so that they headed in the other direction.
At the turn of the 20th century, developers were creating attractions at the ends of many Montgomery County streetcar lines. They hoped that once out in this beautiful countryside, people would want to build a home here. There was Chevy Chase Lake, where people could rent boats and ride the carousel. Wildwood in Tacoma Park, featuring a restaurant, vaudeville acts, and dancing. Bethesda Park was an amusement park located on the line that ran to Alta Vista from Tinleytown. And the same thing was happening here in Glen Echo. United States Park Ranger Sam Squaresky explains.
Edward and Edwin Baltzley in the middle 1880s purchased not just the 10 acres here at Glen Echo, but 516 acres along the Potomac River, just on this side of the C&O Canal and up to the hills of the Potomac Palisades here. They gave the area its name, Glen Echo. They created a public a publicity pamphlet, Glen Echo on the Potomac, the Washington Rhine, and they were hoping to lure people to their new development to live out here.
The brothers envisioned an all-encompassing residential and resort development called Glen Echo on the Potomac. In 1890, this elaborate wooden hotel and restaurant opened. Sadly, it burned down only 4 months later. Around this same time, the Chautauqua movement was becoming popular, and the Balsleys sought to open a center here at Glen Echo.
Today, very few Americans know about Chautauqua, but in the late 19th century, millions of Americans were involved in the Chautauqua movement. Glen Echo itself was the 53rd permanent Chautauqua institution in America. The idea was to have a mass movement where the common man could attend an educational institution. A little bit like an open university, where for a small amount of money, here at Glen Echo it was a quarter, you got entrance into the best that civilization had to offer. There would be lectures, seminars, classes in philosophy and science. There would be concerts and operas, all for the common man.
The Balsley brothers worked quickly, building this tower structure that served as an entranceway. They also built this 6,000-seat amphitheater, complete with an organ that was powered by the nearby Minnehaha Creek. Work was barely finished on opening day.
On June 16th of 1891, Glen Echo opened with citywide and national acclaim as the largest Chautauqua in the area. Among the performers were John Philip Sousa and his orchestra, and speakers from all around the world. The first week, over 4,000 people showed up, and it was a cultural phenomenon.
But it didn't last.
The Glen Echo Chautauqua was very successful for 1 year here, but in the fall of 1891, a rumor was spread that malaria existed in the Potomac, in this part of the Potomac Valley. And when the Balsleys tried to open up the Chautauqua in 1892, nobody showed up. And that was the end of this noble educational experiment here along the Potomac River. The land was pretty much idle for the next 6 years. In 1898, the first amusement park opened here on the site, and there were concerts and dancing, a shooting gallery, and a small carousel, along with some other small attractions. Just like amusement parks today, the Glen Echo Amusement Park was a different experience as you came through over the years. We have postcards from 1903 that show a Ferris wheel at Glen Echo with beautiful views of the Potomac Valley. But some years there were Ferris wheels, other times not. Over the course of the 70 years, there must have been at least 10 roller coasters here at the park. So when people come back remembering Glen Echo of their day, they aren't necessarily remembering the Glen Echo that was there 10 years earlier. But you can count on there having been something sweet to eat, a thrill or two to experience on the rides, a chance to win a game at one of the arcade concessions, and a lot of smiles, a lot of music here at the park. For 70 years, this was the biggest amusement park in Washington that many Washingtonians really enjoyed, but not all.
Glen Echo Park, like many institutions of that era, was whites only. People of color were denied entry until 1961. Inspired
by the words of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, a group of Howard University Divinity School students and SNCC, the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, held pickets during the summer of 1960 at all the park entrances to protest the long history of segregation here at Glen Echo Amusement Park. Those protests were joined by many of the residents of neighboring Bannockburn and the other areas around the park, and supported by Montgomery County. The County Department of Recreation refused to send school children to the Crystal Pool to learn to swim here because the park was segregated. After a year of demonstrations, the park managers, at that point it was owned privately, opened this park to all Americans. In 1968, due to dwindling attendance and rising land values, Glen Echo Park closed down. The Glen Echo streetcar, the only one remaining in Montgomery County, also closed that same year.
In 1970, thanks to pressure from the community to keep it from being developed, the land was turned over to the National Park Service. Since then, the park has hosted an arts program that harkens back to its early Chautauqua days.
Hey, Chief!
Signs of the old amusement park are everywhere. There's the bumper car pavilion, the cuddle up, and the arcades, all of which are used in arts programming today. The Denzel Carousel is the only ride that still operates. Max Hurley has been at the helm since 1978.
This carousel was installed in 1921. It came from the Denzel Carousel Company. What you see here are all the original animals. Now through the years, when they needed to be repainted, they just painted over them, just so you could find, we found up to 10 layers of paint on these animals. And now restoration, one lady was doing our restoration work, named Rosa Reagan. When we had the money, she would take an animal down during the winter and restore it. Of course, that was taking a long time. And about 5 years ago, we had a large donation come in from a foundation, to which we were able to finish the carousel in 5 years after that. So it's been 20 years on restoration work.
One feature of the park that did not survive was the Crystal Pool.
Crystal Pool opened in 1931. During the midst of the Great Depression, the stock market has crashed. Many families have lost their life savings when the banks close. So many people have lost their jobs. Glen Echo Park is booming. They've built probably the most beautiful swimming pool I ever saw before or since, the wonderful Crystal Pool at Glen Echo Park that featured a fountain, an island, a 3-meter dive and 2 low-meter dives. There was a white sand beach. You could pretend you were spending a day at the ocean. The Crystal Pool was a major attraction in a park filled with fun attractions.
And of course, as we celebrate the restoration of the Spanish Ballroom, everyone is excited about the future of this park. Katie Berner, Executive Director of the Glen Echo Park Partnership for Arts and Culture, explains.
Well, the sort of rebirth of the ballroom and the North Arcade buildings is an important phase in the construction. We're concluding probably the biggest phase of construction in the park. And for those that have lived in the community like I have, they've seen these buildings dilapidated, ready to fall down, with arts groups struggling to present their programs in these facilities, and the Park Service doing their best to maintain these buildings. But now we're here in the present day where we have very durable, fantastic new buildings to conduct our programs and to welcome the public. So it's an incredible resource and asset for the community in terms of the programs that we can present and the activities that can take place in Glen Echo Park with a safe, secure, sound environment that's appropriate for the programs.
A few things have changed since this episode first aired. U.S. Park Ranger Sam Swirsky has relocated to Wolf Trap in Northern Virginia. The streetcar that once stood at Glen Echo's entrance was sold and removed due to lack of maintenance funds. But on a happier note, the Trolley Museum has opened a new facility. Well, that's it for this show. I'm Gail Street. See you next time.